Hello everybody. So this is kind of my apology video for not really making anything in the past couple of months. God, I have been really busy with school and I haven't had a break for long. So as an apology to all you got... Anyway, let's get started. Now during the sketching phase, this happens in parts. The first part is a complete and utter mess. I just kind of roughly sketch out where the head, the shoulders, the chest, the hips, and where the hands are going, and just kind of roughly connect everything together into something that vaguely kind of looks like somebody. And in the second part of it, I just kind of roughly sketch in the face, the heads. I don't tend to really draw clothing on them until the second part of it, so as such, I draw a lot of naked people. And usually it's naked men. Now the line art, I tend to do this pretty quickly. Like, after years of drawing, line art just kind of becomes an instinctual thing. Now the hair, that is one of the things I really like to draw, so as such I tend to put a little bit more detail into it on the first run through than pretty much anything else, and as a consequence it tends to look the best. Now for the clothing, this time around, since I really didn't know what I was going to be doing with it, I just kind of did a quick sketch on a separate layer. I didn't really have any plan with that, so I guess I gave him a torn denim jacket? I don't know. And once again, the line art through this takes pretty quick, so I'm just going to completely skip over it. And now, onto the coloring. I tend to put on a base color background just so that I could see what all the other colors are going to look like in what I think the background color is going to look like. I really don't have very much of a plan. Now the fire. This bitch. This thing, God, I really didn't have a clue what I was doing here. I didn't really look up a reference, and that's totally my bad. It's not like a reference would have helped anyway, but eventually I just kind of gave up on it and just moved on to getting all the base colors onto the character. As you can see here, I tend to keep all the colors within some general color scheme. In this one, I chose blue and red because I figured that complemented the background best, and since there was going to be fire, I figured the red would need to be worked in there somewhere. Now that I got the base colors down, I tried to work on the fire. Again, I really didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just looked up a couple of references for fire. It didn't help at all. It's really not working out for me. Eventually, I just erase the entire thing, move on to something basically entirely different. So I tried to do some whirly bits and try to make it look a little bit more realistic. Eventually, I just give up on that and just move on to getting some of the highlights for the main character. And in doing the highlights, I tried to create a bit of a better contrast, so I darken all of the colors of the character. You really can't see him, and that gets fixed later, but again, I really didn't do any planning with this, so it's a complete and utter mess until I somehow managed to pull it together in the end. Now back to the fire. I eventually managed to pick something that looks somewhat decent, and it was really just by complete accident. There really isn't any rhyme or reason to why it's happening, so I really can't give very much advice on what to do to make it look good. This is just how it came out. Now after that, I tried to make a background. It doesn't work. I really didn't like how it came out, so I just, again, gave up and decided to move on to something else, which in this case happens to be some highlights for the face and the rest of the characters so that you can actually see some of the line work that I put in and give it a little bit more of a depth. I'm playing around with colors again. I'm changing the colors of the fire, I'm changing the colors of the highlights. I'm just trying to make something that works. Then I try to put in some effects. I really don't like it, so I get rid of them eventually. I try to put in a background. I don't like it. I try to redo it. I tried to make 3 different iterations of the background. I hated them all. Eventually I just picked something and went with it. And now onto the background. Oh dear God, the backgrounds. I am not good at backgrounds. I didn't plan this one out, which is one of the reasons why I really didn't like making the background in this one. And I genuinely didn't really know what I wanted out of it, so I just kind of randomly threw in details, tried to make sure like, oh Eventually I just kind of throw in a couple effects and say, oh, this looks good. Now I know with most speed paints there's usually like some sort of rhyme or reason to how the artists make the background. I just completely f***ed around until I got something that looked pretty decent. I changed the colors like 5 times, and it wasn't until my roommate came in and suggested that I make a cyan background that I just kind of pulled it all together. And then once I find something that's vaguely to my liking, I try to put in a couple effects, and again, there really isn't any rhyme or reason with this one either. I just play around and see what I like. And eventually I managed to get the final product, which, as it turns out, didn't turn out half bad. But I'm probably not the best person to go to when it comes to planning. I don't plan, and it's pretty obvious that you could tell. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will try to get to my other videos eventually. See y'all later!